very good. Well, my name is Roger Moon, and I do want to thank the folks here at the museum for inviting me to speak tonight. And I'm happy to have some folks here from the Times-Mail, because some of the people we're going to talk about, I think it's going to bring back a lot of memories from our days in the newsroom, those many years together, and now those many years ago, actually. So we will be talking about Newsmakers 250. But the first thing we're going to do, and some of you are going to be at a disadvantage. I have a couple of gentlemen here in the front row who've come all the way from southern Orange County, and they're going to take a quiz about Lawrence County. We'll see how that goes. We're going to have a quiz. Now, here's the problem. I can give you little cards to write on, but I don't have a surface. So I'm suggesting you just hold it in the palm of your hand. It's not hard. Now, I don't want you, as I ask these questions, I don't want you shouting out the answers. I don't want you looking at your neighbor's papers. You know how this goes. Oh, you'll need pens. So we're going to talk about mostly Lawrence County newsmakers over the past, not so much 250 years ago, but Lawrence County newsmakers. All right, so.
Probably do.
Okay. All right.
Can we phone a friend? Can we phone a friend or anything?
No, you can't. You cannot phone a friend. You cannot phone a friend. Okay. Remember the rules. Don't shout out the answers as much as you want to, and do not look off of your neighbor's paper. Okay. So. The first question, sorry about you guys from Southern Orange County, but I do appreciate them being here. Folks from our church back home, so all right. Happy to have them here. Okay, at the time of his death, at the age of 99 years old, this downtown Bedford merchant was the current president of the Bedford North Lawrence Scholarship Foundation. At 99 years old, still that active. And some of you are looking like, I don't know who that is, but... Okay, second question. He was the first United States World War II veteran to be elected to the U.S. Senate. The first United States U.S. veteran, or World War II veteran to be elected to the U.S. Senate. And back at the Times-Mail many years ago, when Wanda Williams was working there, she would say, we need to get this in the paper. If we don't get this in the paper, people will think we've been living under a rock. Well, if you don't know the answer to this question, I don't mean to offend you, but it'll be like you've been living under a rock. A do-gooder from the early 1980s, known for his colorful footprints. Okay. I do hope you know that one. Number 4, the first woman in the state to serve as a county judge. Tell me if I go too fast. Okay. All right, I'll slow down. Now I can go? All right, and there was already a reference kind of to this a little bit earlier, Rowena, and you didn't know you were doing it. Their high-protein corn hunger relief project was carried out with the idea that hungry people can learn of God's love by first being fed. Do you know the names of those folks from the High Lysine Corn Project? Number 6. She served as a prayer leader at the White House and the Pentagon. People from Lawrence County had some unusual and interesting distinctions. Okay, she served as a prayer leader at the White House and at the Pentagon.
And these are all from Lawrence County.
Well, and she later moved here and spent many years here. Yes. She might, okay. Carol's providing additional hints. She may have taught exercise classes. That help you guys? No. Yeah. Okay. We ready for number 7?
I got the number.
Number 7. Known for establishing a shelter that provides home and hope to women fleeing domestic violence.
I say you dropped your voice at the end.
Oh, okay. She was known for establishing a shelter for women and children who were fleeing domestic violence. And this one might trick you, I don't know. The 2 men for whom the White River bridges on Indiana 37 are named. The bridges are named for somebody. You drive over them every day or two probably. Have you noticed or do you remember?
On 37.
On 37, the White River bridges. All right, and
2 points.
Yeah, but still there are no prizes, you know. Okay, number 9, and there are 15 of these. We're not going to do this all night. Okay. Number 9, and you've seen this sign, but are you going to remember it? A mile-long stretch of Indiana 37 near Mitchell is named for this fallen police officer. And as I said, people have had some interesting distinctions here in Lawrence County. Was part of a gang that robbed a Union Pacific passenger train mail car and its passengers. Part of a gang that robbed a Union Pacific train. Where are we? Number 11? His ability to play the spoons earned him a reference on the popular game show Jeopardy. Spoon player referenced on Jeopardy. Yes, yes. Now this one's a little tricky because there are actually 3 answers from the book if you have read it. But this physician came to Bedford from Iran and delivered more than 10,000 babies in his 4-decade career. There were more doctors who delivered 10,000 babies, but this is the only one I know of who came from Iran. All right, number 13. This Mitchell man played prominently into the resurgence of the bald eagle population in Indiana. Who was that? And I love this one. Number 14. She refused to allow Bobby Knight into the gym to watch Damon Bailey play basketball. If you haven't heard that story, or read that story in the book, it's a great one. But she said, no, you can't go into the gym to watch Damon Bailey play ball. And it was Bobby Knight that she was talking to. And number 15, his best-known project was his life-size 3-ton limestone creation of the familiar painting of Washington crossing the Delaware. All right, now we can shout out the answers. Number 1, who was this 99-year-old man? Dave Jacobs, very good. Number 2, who was the U.S. Senator? Bill Jenner. The do-gooder with the colorful footprints? Captain Purple. Do you guys know the Captain Purple story? I have to tell you about Captain Purple. And the first woman in the state to serve as a county judge? Linda Cheatham. And who has had the high lysine corn project? Yeah, Sherwood. Hollis and Isla Sherwood. The prayer leader at the White House and the Pentagon? Nita Scoggin. Okay. The shelter for women? Rebecca Ryan. Whose names are on those bridges?
E.B. Crow and George Hawkins.
E.B. Crow and George Hawkins, yes. George Hawkins? I can tell you.
They were very.
We'll come to that.
They were very active in 4-H, and that's why the bridge going out.
You're right. You're right about that.
Jeff, when you need to play this game, you don't get to play this game, do you?
Why?
He did know more about the answer at this point than I did, even though I wrote the book here. So,
I wrote a story.
And who robbed the Union Pacific passenger train?
My cousin.
Oh, did I skip number 9? Oh, the fallen police officer. Gillespie, correct. Now, who robbed the train?
My cousin.
Jeff's cousin, Sam Bass. And now we see why Jeff's the way he is. And who shares his birthday?
Roger Moon.
And Bill Jenner's birthday. And Sean Steele's birthday. Oh, never mind. Okay, where are we? Oh, the spoon player. Claude Ferguson. And they did, in fact, reference him on Jeopardy one night.
I remember hearing
Yes, and I can't remember exactly how it was phrased, but yeah. All right, so the physician from Iran. Dr. Borhan, not Dr. Mount. Dr. Borhan. Okay, the Mitchell man who was prominent with the resurgence of the bald eagle. John Castrale. All right, and who told Bobby Knight he could not watch Damon Bailey play ball. Oh yeah, you have to read this. It's on Duncan's aunt, Dorothy Duncan. It's a fun little story in here. So yeah, and then Washington crossing the Delaware. Frank Arena. Who got them all? Who got most of them? Okay. All right. Well, I hope that was fun for you, and I hope we didn't take too much. And I hope I didn't take too much time with that. There are a few things we do want to cover, talking about how the book came to be. The book was actually inspired by something I saw back during the bicentennial in 2016. And that was when two Indiana University Southeast professors put together or edited something called Indiana's 200. And some of you are familiar with that then. And there were profiles then of 200 folks from Indiana who had made significant contributions to the state over 200 years. And I thought I could do that and just focus on the two counties with which I'm most familiar. Most of you know that I worked here 30 years, but I lived in Orange County all that time. So I knew a lot of folks in both places. So this book is what inspired the idea, actually. Now, so I had to think about how to approach that. Well, one other thing I want to share before that. From the book, in one of the opening pages, there's a quote by a man named Arthur Dillard, and he wrote a lot of history books for Orange County. And listen carefully to what he said in his book. People, places, back roads, customs, and events of local history are too seldom discussed by prominent historians. Still, this sort of storytelling is worthwhile. Researching local history results in many interesting revelations and surprises. Information on where a community came from, who we are, and the joys, sacrifices, foresight, and accomplishments of our local citizens. These are valuable lessons and encouragement for future generations. I hadn't read that at the time I set out to write this book, but I thought, this is what I wanted to talk about. And this is what he's talking about there. So how to approach this? I needed some criteria in terms of who to include in the book. At first, I thought, well, Sinclair and Dr. Guggen included 200 people for 200 years. And I thought, so I'll write about 250 people. I couldn't stop at 250 people. So it's, Newsmakers 250 plus is what it is. So I got to thinking about what criteria to use. Well, one of the things that worked best for me, from having worked at the newspaper, is that I clipped my stories to the point that I think some of you in the newsroom thought, why are you clipping? We have the internet. Carol was there. She knows all about it. We have the internet. Why are you clipping all these stories? Well, I did. And I had all these things. And I'm kind of glad I did, because sometimes when you go to the internet, it comes up blank. So I had my own archives, and I thought about the many people that I had interviewed and written stories about over those many years. So it is largely from my own archives. Another criteria that I used was the people for whom something is named. We just talked about the bridges being named for folks and their contributions. Dunn Hospital. There are streets, Bryan Lane Way, John Williams Boulevard, Phil Tatum, various streets that are named for local leaders and such. There were people that I wanted to include who had these unique distinctions. We just mentioned Bill Jenner and Linda Cheatham, so they were among those. There were other people who are just, in every small town, and that includes Valine back home, guys. There are people who are just, and one of them's in the book, there are people who are just iconic. Maxine Smith, Maxine's restaurant in Bartlettsville. If you were ever there, that was a fun place to be. Denny Godsey up in Springville. And as it turned out, he passed just as I was working on the book, but I was able to include him in that. And one of my favorite people in Williams, Stella Hammersley. What a fun personality she had. And then there were just those kind of fun and unusual stories. Some of you may remember Jay and Dale Combs, Ralph the Ram, who was in the parades, and that family had a long history of bringing exotic animals to the Bedford parades and to other parades. And then there was Clarissy Carroll. Do anybody know who Clarissy was? Jeff, tell them who Clarissy was.
Clarissy was look out at the Georgia Fire Tower for 70 years, I think.
Well,
Until her 90s, I think.
let's talk a little bit about how that came to be.
Filled in for her husband.
Yes, her husband actually accepted the job to be the one to climb the fire tower every day, but he got busy with his agriculture, with his farming. So Clarissa started climbing up the fire tower every day. In an interview with Clarissa, and I don't know whether this was your story or it might have been Crystal's, or actually, no, excuse me. This one was published in wildlife.dnr.in.gov. She spoke of how she hadn't officially been designated to take over for Clinton, her husband. Yet when DNR officials found her doing the job, she was praised for her work and was given a green skirt and blouse with the DNR insignia to wear. Note this. The skirt later was replaced by slacks, with Clarissa saying in the interview, "The wind is no respecter of situations." When firefighters assembled below the tower. I just thought that was fun. She recounted a time of what was referred to as the Big Georgia Fire, where there was fire all around her tower, and she said she felt like a smoked airing. The fire burned one home, 2,464 acres of hardwood forest, 10 acres of pine plantation, all that before it was contained. And Carol was 103 when she died in 2009. So again, just people with such interesting stories. And at the Times Mail is Carol and Jeff and Susan and Jeff. As you all know, we got to go in and hear those stories and write those stories and share them with you. And I didn't get to interview Clarissa, but I wanted to include her. And then they're just characters. Sam Shaw.
Yes.
Sam Shaw. Sam Bass, who we just referenced. Just characters. And I have to talk about Ted Owens. Does anybody know who Ted Owens was? If some of you have had a chance to look at this book, you might have seen it. But and I probably should have included him when I just talked about eccentrics. But Ted Owens, as you'll find on page 167. I know when we were working at the Times Mail, and others of you who worked there experienced this, there would be that person who would come into the office, and I hope none of them were you, that we were saying, "Oh no, him again." Her again, you know. But, you know, for me, it was the guy who came in and had a cure for baldness. I'd love to talk to him now. And then the guy who came in and had invented the perpetual motion machine, which I think is impossible to do, but he came in claiming to have done that. And then I read, in my research, I found a story that I think Claude Parsons, if you remember Claude from the Times Mail, had written several years ago about this man named Ted Owens. And that just stuck with me. And I found the name actually because if you go to Wikipedia and look up any community, there usually is a section for famous people from this town. And so I saw this name Ted Owens, and I thought, I don't know who it is. So I looked him up. It said that he was, what was the term it used? He communicated with aliens, is what he did. Okay. So let's see what else we can learn. He is said to have had the powers to make miracles happen. Owens made other claims in a newspaper interview. Specifically, he said his mind had control over professional basketball and football teams in recent years. Right here from Bedford, Indiana. I don't know exactly. I think he graduated high school in the 1940s. So he could control these professional basketball and other teams to the point that he caused injuries to key players to keep them from winning the Super Bowl. Who knew? Let me see. He claimed that in June 1967, he had notified the United States Hurricane Center that 3 simultaneous hurricanes would occur, and that Hurricanes Beulah, Chloe, and Doris were then active the same weekend, which maybe that happened. He maintained he got his power from the Bermuda Triangle off the Florida coast, where many U.S. aircraft and ships have gone missing. Added to that was Owens' claim that a National Aeronautics and Space Administration physicist had stated that a UFO base existed in an island in the Bahamas. Owens said, "I've worked for and with them, with UFOs for 10 years. So who knew? So, you know, when we talked about Dillard saying you'd find some surprises, That was a big surprise for me because I had no idea. So there were those eccentrics, Sam Bass, Sam Shaw, as I said, Ted Owens. Davy Burns, if you knew him, wasn't from Lawrence County, but he was actually from Washington County, but I don't even know what else to say about him. If you lived in Lawrence and Orange counties during his time, you saw Davy Burns on his bicycle. Yes. And one thing that I was very happy to include is, you know how often we think about folks who are labeled as having disabilities, and we don't stop to think about how they contribute, because they contribute in so many ways. And so I found the story that I'd written about Jeff Tyree, Down syndrome, who had worked for the Mitchell J.C. store for 25 years or so, and I read about the other ways that he was involved in his community. And I thought, there's a place for Jeff here. And down in Orange County, Barry Compton had that fundraiser for muscular dystrophy for years and years and years. So those are folks who were included. So that was some of the criteria for who to be included in the book. Now, everybody sitting there is going to think, but so-and-so wasn't included, and why isn't this person and that person? We could go on forever and ever. There comes a point where you just stop and you say, I have to do this now. So another focus was on the industries in the two counties. Of course, here in Lawrence County, the limestone industry. We talked a little bit about Frank Arena. The other folks that I was privileged to get to talk to, not so much Dave Elliott, but Judy. But I would say a couple of things about the Elliots that you can find in the book. Give me just a second here. And just how significant they were in the limestone industry. And I learned something about Dave that I had, if I'd known, I'd forgotten. In 1987, Dave Elliott was awarded the first Stone World Technological Achievement Award, and that was for being the most innovative quarrier in North America. So when you think about those contributions that folks here made to the limestone industry, and we just scratched the surface here. I mean, there are so many other folks who made those contributions and who worked in that industry and have worked in that industry for years who could have been included. But the Elliots were just somebody they were folks that I had the opportunity to learn a little bit more about and to interact with to some degree. So there's that industry. Well, of course, down in Orange County, it's especially now, the tourism industry, and with the casino and those things that came along a few years ago. And so there's quite an emphasis on the Orange County resort community. And therein I talked about Jerry Denbo, of course, was a legislator who just worked and worked and worked to get that casino down there for the economic difference that it was going to make in that community. And of course, Steve Ferguson and the Cooks couldn't have done what they did without the Cooks. But I was impressed by a man named Sam Townsley. And I don't know if you knew who Sam Townsley was. Sam Townsley was hang on just one second. He was a bellhop at the French Lick Resort for 50 years. And he made a point when I interviewed him for a column that I hadn't really stopped to think about, I guess. But he said, let me see if I can find it here so I can read it to you. So think of the bellhop. You've seen the bellhop, and even if you weren't staying at the French Lick Resort, you've seen the bellhops and you know what they do. But Sam told me, Townsley understood the weightiness of his job. He told the Times-Mail in 2001, that was the interview I did with him, that a bell staff member helps shape the first impression a guest has and also a guest's last contact. He told the newspaper, if things didn't go right, the last contact sometimes solves the problem. And so as significant as these other folks were in that resort community, it was Sam Townsley and folks like him who really are the ones who make it succeed. So Sam Townsley is certainly one that I wanted to include. Now, there are industries that are underrepresented in this book. The automotive industry in Lawrence County, I don't know that I touched it. The wood manufacturing in the two counties probably over the years. I just didn't have that in my archives, or didn't have the kind of access to that I did have to some of the others. The book is divided into several categories. And I'm just going to kind of go through what they are. So the first category is downtown, and that's where you find Dave Jacobs and Mel Hamill and Ralph and Mary Anderson, as well as some of the folks who were in the downtown areas in Orange County. And Mitchell, I thought of Dana and Brenda Dunbar, some of my favorite people in the whole world, and their contributions down there. Then I went into the section on education, and that's where Dorothy Duncan's story was told. I think she was a little bit embarrassed, according to Son, that she didn't realize she was talking to Bobby Knight, and he wanted to watch Damon Bailey play. And so she sent for the athletic director, and he came back. And when he came back, and it was Ray Manis, and he came back and he said, "Good God, Dorothy, that's Bob Knight." I think Dorothy was a little bit embarrassed, but she let Son tell the story in the newspaper, so I felt I could tell the story here. And Son and I talked about it. And there's Dorothy there, and taught at B&L, I guess, for a number of years. Yeah. So Dorothy's one of those included there. Imogene Chase. Anybody know anything about Imogene Chase? Apparently she was a very popular teacher at Bedford High School many, many years ago, but had information about her and included her. Dorothy Stroud down in Mitchell, of course. So there's this section on education and the environment wherein I talk about, I thought that was a good place to put John Castrale, as we talked about the reintroduction of the bald eagle. Bob Armstrong and Dee Slater, both deceased now, were all about the Lost River car system, and they used to lead those tours out of Orleans like one Saturday a month for years. So they were all about that. And then, of course, down in Orange County, although he's known everywhere, Andy Mahler and then Linda Lee. And Andy, we lost Andy about a year ago, I think it was. So, lots of government leaders here. Let me see. Linda Cheatham I talk about here, John and Jean Williams, of course. So there's a category then for government leaders. And then we went into the history lovers, and that's where some of you found your spot. And I had some folks say to me in both counties, well, why am I in there? And I'm thinking, are you part of our story? Enough said. Because these are the folks, John Bridges, Helen Burchard, some who were before the folks who are now involved in the museum and in the preserving history here. They were folks who were moving it forward. James Guthrie, I think, was another name. So there's that category. Hoosier Hysteria. Lawrence County's probably a little bit shortchanged in this. As I always said when I was working at the newspaper, I don't know a home run from a touchdown. But Austin Peak Pritchett is here. And I think there might be another one or two. And we'll come back to Damon Bailey, of course. And then we talked a little bit about the limestone industry. So we've included that already. The media, lots of media folks. Bill Schrader, of course. Did I mention earlier that I think I did, part of the criteria for who was selected were folks who were eventually made part of a Hall of Fame. Bill Schrader was inducted into the Journalism Hall of Fame, and rightfully so, a few years ago. So lots of media folks here that you would recognize. Our friend Bob Bridge. Ray Snapp. I didn't have the opportunity to work with Ray Snapp. Did you ever, Carol? Was it before you were working there? And Susan? Did you work with Ray? I only heard good things about him and what he brought to that newspaper during the time he was there.
He said to me when I first started working there, he said, "We have a saying in the newsroom, don't cross the bridge."
Oh!
And I said, "I'll cross that bridge when I get to it." And he said, "You're hired."
All right. Well, then there's medicine, and there you'll find Dr. Sarles. You'll find Dr. Borhan, Dr. Mount, Dr. Creighton. So there are sections there. And Carol, I want to thank you for that wonderful story you did on Dr. Creighton at the time of her retirement, because I went through that and stole information. But it was a terrific story, and you had a terrific subject to write about. So there's a section there, and then did I mention Dr. Mount and Dr. Pless, John Pless, if you knew him. Section on military. Well, could not have written the book without James Hutchinson, obviously. If you don't know James Hutchinson, then I'll have to make sure you folks know a little bit about him later. Fascinating man. So the military section, Brian Lane. Of course, that's quite a story, Brian Lane. Music. So there's that section. I think one of the more, spoon player, remember his name? Claude Ferguson. And one of the more popular individuals in music, we have Clayton Anderson to really bring this up to date a little bit. Clayton Anderson, Kirby Staley is from here. Becky Sprinkle. I mean, there were multiple reasons to write about Becky Sprinkle. Of course, her many years as a guidance counselor at BNL and the many lives she touched there. But can she ever play music? And does she love to play music? And is she on the road all the time in Lawrence or Orange County or someplace? So I had to include her. I just had to do that. Down in Orange County, of course, we have Lotus Dickey. We talked a little bit. Oh, this was interesting too. Way back when, I didn't know him. Clyde Yaney, you may have heard of him? Or Bertie Lee Woods. Their uncle and niece, they were musicians, and both of them, many years ago, served on the board of directors for the Country Music Association. Well, you don't have that every day in Lawrence County. So I thought that was interesting. And then we talked about the resort. We've already mentioned that. And then I got to a point where I thought, there's a lot of people who don't just fit into one of those categories, but I want to talk about them. Among them was, I didn't mention this earlier as I talked about the criteria. Sometimes people make a difference in small ways, and their names can disappear into obscurity. But you have to think about the lives that they touched. The ones that come to mind are actually down in Orange County. A lady named Nina Lewis lived to be, how old was Nina? 104, died a year or so ago. She made aprons for folks. And that was just a big thing. And let me see if I brought it. Carol, I think you're going to remember this. There was a gentleman in Orange County, matchstick images with Jesus picture in it. I'm going to actually look it up. This fellow lived on I don't know if you remember, Russell, lived on the Valene Road. I just want you to know how many of these things he made, if I can find him here real quickly. But as I said, the names kind of disappear into obscurity, but you can talk to so many people say, oh, yeah, I have one of those, because it was in the thousands. And I'm going to tell you here in a second. He was 92 when he died. In a Bedford Times-Mail story published January 12, 2013, it was reported that Rezac had 16 matches per frame. Count them. 16 matches per frame. Had struck more than 400,000 matches during the 15 or so years he carried out what could appropriately be called his ministry. So again, that was just kind of another, and I intended to mention him earlier and I didn't remember it, but those folks who just, random acts of kindness is what we used to call it. I don't think we hear that term much anymore. So anyway, there was that category for what we call the rest. But then the final section of the book are stories written about people that I didn't feel qualified to write about. But I thought, do I know a good local historian who knows anything and everything there is to know about Virgil Gus Grissom? Stand up, Jeff. So I enlisted Jeff to write that story. He did a fine job for me. And I thought, somebody knows a lot more about Edward Hutton. Didn't I see his name here? Yeah. About Edward L. Hutton than I do. And that's some folks with the Lawrence County Museum, and it happened to be Rebecca Boer. So I persuaded, coerced, I don't know. But anyway, she put together a fine piece about Mr. Hutton. Basketball. I thought, I need somebody to write about Damon Bailey who's going to do a better job than I did. And it took 2 or 3 conversations with Jeff Bartlett, but he came around. And our good friend Jeff Bartlett, who worked at the Times-Mail for 25 years, I don't know, 30. He worked there for a long time. An excellent writer. So Jeff Bartlett then agreed to write the Damon Bailey piece. Some other folks from Lawrence County. Debbie O'Leary, and I don't actually know Debbie O'Leary. Does anybody know that name? Well, I learned about her, and that she, Debbie O'Leary, and I learned that she is a writer. She might live in Monroe County. But anyway, I was looking for somebody to write about Becky Skillman because I thought, that's a big story. You know, Becky Skillman, lieutenant governor had been a lieutenant governor of the state. So I learned about Debbie. And Debbie did something that I didn't do. I worked primarily from news clippings, from obituaries, unfortunately, and just work and find the written word or find things online to put together the pieces I put here. But Debbie O'Leary said, I'm going to go interview Becky Skillman. And she did. And I'm not sure that Becky Skillman had talked as openly and as honestly about where she is now in life, the things she's doing. She's actually volunteering some here at the museum, is she not? And so there are just some fun quotes in here about Becky Skillman and a nice up-to-date look at where she is now in her life. And so Debbie Leary put that together for me. And so I very much appreciated her help. And then the character of Sarah Schaefer. Sarah Schaefer's murder was in the early 1900s? 1904. Okay, and yeah, January 21st. You know that, or that's just a guess? Okay. Anyway, so it was considered, I guess still today maybe, an unsolved murder. Well, Lori Roberts, a good friend of mine, with whom I have many connections. She's from down around the neighborhood where I came from. She's actually from Milltown, and I grew up near Marengo. So Lori Roberts put that story together for me because she's written an entire book about Sarah Schaefer. So I had those folks who were available to help me, and it really would not be the same book without those folks participating. So Jeff and Rebecca, I appreciate very much what you did to help with this project. And then also, the last one that I would mention from Lawrence, or who contributed as a writer, was Nick Storm. And if you heard the recent Are You Captain Purple podcast, that was, I think, about a 10 podcast series. If you guys haven't heard it, you need to listen to that. So Nick Storm, he and Derek Ingersoll did that podcast. And so I enlisted Nick to write about Captain Purple. Nick, I don't know that he has a lot of roots here. He is in Kentucky now, but I do understand he's a 2001 graduate of Mitchell High School. So did anybody know Nick? Did you know Nick by any chance, Nick Storm? So he contributed that. So 2001, does that sound right? Yeah. So that's kind of how the book came together and how it's divided, the criteria for selecting people. One thing I did not say, so we're looking back 250 years, but we're not exactly, because it's hard to reach back that far. And not only that, as you put together something like this, I was able to mention names that you knew, and it's more relatable. So truthfully, most of these figures are from the last 100 years. Not that we're 100 years old, but they're still more relatable to us. But I wanted to reach back beyond that as much as I could. And so I remembered this little piece, the Times Mail, December 31st, 1999. I actually came to the museum and went on the computer. I was making all these copies. You were there when I was doing it. And I had all these 8.5 by 11 sheets of information I took home, and went home and started digging around, and I actually had saved a copy of this. So we in the time... I think I'm telling this right. So in the Times Mail, as we were looking at what do we want to say as the 1900s come to an end? What do we want to say about this community and who some of the people were? My guess is, Carol, Jeff, there was probably quite a collaborative effort on whose names would be included in this. But I want to give credit largely to Mary Margaret Stipp and Mary Johnson. I think they may have been driving this. But I was able to go back and look at those profiles and talk about some of the folks from earlier times, because it did reach back quite a ways. So I hadn't said that earlier, but that was part of the criteria for this. I've talked long enough, but I would entertain any questions that folks might have. Anything at all? Yes.
I don't remember the man's name, but he made the matchstick.
Oh, Russell Rizek.
When he went into the nursing home, remember he couldn't strike any matches there?
Oh dear.
He kept making the frames, and I don't know if you included, but it's in one of your columns, that it told about somebody had to strike the matches for him elsewhere and bring them into the nursing home so he could make the frames.
Yeah, and I don't know if you might have learned that piece somewhere else or not, but it was just fascinating. That was his ministry.
I've got number 141.
Oh, they are numbered. That's right. I forgot they were numbered. I don't know which number I brought here this evening. We are looking at number... I can't read it. 607, maybe. Yeah. Anyway, so that was Russell's story. Other questions? Well, that's all I have. Thank you. If you are interested, I do have a few copies of the book in the back. They sell for $15, and here, when sold here at the museum, $5 of that goes to the museum. So, thank you very much.